through a little
How
bit.
much do you think the pay-per-view of McGregor Mayweather is going to be? Because it's not a debate anymore. It's 100% going to happen.
I don't know about that.
It's 100% going to happen.
No.
I'm putting it on tape right now.
Yeah,
whatever this is.
You might not be right.
Well, listen. Well, you know what? You either build the biggest building or not.
Yeah.
You and I will have a nice little exchange in 4 years, and you'll make fun of me. You'll call
listen,
this clip. It's happening.
Well, I would say
they're doing everything they can to make
if
it
you
happen.
looked at it as in terms of a 0% chance to 100% chance.
Where's your number?
I think we're in the 70s.
Okay. Well, then
I think we're in the 70s
good job
or 80s.
by clarifying, because I think that's where I think we're at as well.
I think there's a significant legal hurdle to overcome with the UFC, and they might not overcome that, depending on how they play that card. This is my opinion on it. Now, McGregor has publicly stated that he believes because of the Ali Act, he can compete in boxing and not do it with the UFC, but he wants everything to be smooth, so he would rather have the UFC involved. But he also wants the UFC to recognize what he says is their place. So there's Mayweather Productions, the UFC, and McGregor Productions.
Right.
This is what he's promotions rather. So this is what he is stating now. He's going to be a partner in the promotion, and so there's going to be some sort of a negotiation for how things are split up in 3 ways. And then the question becomes, can they work that out? Okay, if they can work that out, then it becomes a question of, should they do it, and will it be competitive, and is it good for their brand? And that's where they might have a debate on this.
I think what's going to end up happening is the economics are going to be so big that it's going to override the brand play. The math is just going to be too big.
It's possible, but McGregor's so big, the economics of him fighting in MMA, like, see, look at it this way. So if he fights Mayweather, maybe there'll be 4 million pay-per-view buys, right? But
what was Pacquiao Mayweather? Do you know?
What was it, Jamie? 4.5 or something? We looked at it the other day. Just Google it real quick. I think it was like 4.5. I think it was the biggest of all. 4.6,
it was
right?
definitely the biggest.
Was it a 4.6? I think it was the biggest of all time. We'll find out. I think it was the biggest of all time. And I think that those numbers, though, here's the deal. McGregor can do those numbers over the course of 3 fights. So, is that it? 4.6? So 4.6 million pay-per-views. Now, McGregor has done 1.5 for the Nate Diaz rematch, 1.3 for Eddie Alvarez, somewhere around those range. So that right there, just those two together are roughly 3 million pay-per-views.
Yeah, but how much money
for 2 fights?
Did he make in those fights?
A fuckload.
No,
he made a lot.
He's not going to make the kind. I mean,
not the same money he would make as a co-promoter.
And if he loses in a boxing match. It's so simple for him to say, that's not what I do, and go back.
That's true.
Whereas I don't know MMA the way, not even remotely close to you, and not enough to be dangerous here, but from what I understand, I've done a little homework, he doesn't have a lot of great natural fights. He has a 3rd fight with Diaz.
Great natural fights?
His next 3 fights.
He's got a bunch. He's got quite a few.
Help me understand what, that's why I'm setting it up for you. So from a financial standpoint, from what the fans want, right? The champions underneath him, it seems like he's fought several of that. He's won those pretty glaring. Like, what's the big fight?
Well, he didn't win the Nate Diaz fight glaringly. He lost the first one, and the second one was a very close decision.
Diaz out of it. I mean, the other champions.
But no, Diaz is the big one.
No, I know. Diaz and him 3 is the big one.
So that one, I think, brings in close to 2 million pay-per-view buys. I really do. I believe Diaz 3.
If 1.3 and 1.2, then
1.5. 1.5 and 1.3.
Yeah, I agree.
1.3 for Eddie Alvarez, where he won his 2nd world title, right? The other one is Tyron Woodley, or whoever wins the Tyron Woodley versus Stephen Wonderboy Thompson rematch for the 170-pound title. That's an interesting fight, too, because if he goes up and challenges at 170 and wins that, Jesus fucking Christ, now he's through the roof. Now he's the biggest star in sports. I mean, he becomes this gigantic, huge, global, worldwide phenomenon. That's entirely inside the realm of possibility. Now, he's not favored in a fight against a 170-pound champion because the guys are bigger, they're faster, or they're stronger, rather. But he's fast as fuck. He's really clever. He's very interesting. The way he approaches fights, he's very intelligent. And it's not outside the realm of possibility that he could beat someone at 170 pounds that's holding the world title, whoever that is. So that's a big fight, too. And that could also, with him attached to it, could bring in 1.5, maybe 2 million pay-per-view buys. So what you're talking about is in a couple of fights, he could make what he could make in that one Floyd Mayweather fight.
If he wants to be a global icon, there's no way anything he does in just MMA trumps that fight.
No, you're right. You're right.
You know what
because
I mean?
it transcends.
Yeah.
It transcends the sport.
It transcends.
Also, it's a really good match for him because Mayweather doesn't really knock people out. I mean, he knocked out Victor Ortiz.
Ortiz had his hands down.
Exactly. He fucked up. He headbutted him, and then he was trying to apologize, and then Mayweather KO'd him. Yeah. But that was a different sort of scenario. Yeah. Before that, the last guy I believe he stopped was Ricky Hatton.
He did.
And he stopped.
Late.
Yeah, I mean,
late 11 or 12.
He's better. I mean, but by the way, Ricky Hatton is like half the size of Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor is a big guy. He's tall. He's 5'9". He's broad-shouldered, and he can fight easily at 170. You know, he cuts weight down to 155 in a fairly healthy manner. Very unhealthy for him to get down to 145, but he has done it. If they fight, I assume they're going to fight somewhere in the 155-pound range. Conor will be significantly bigger than anybody Floyd's ever fought before.
What was your favorite sport growing up?
Martial arts.
Growing up?
Yeah.
Right from the get?
Yeah. Yeah,
because
I just
Bruce Lee movies? Like why? Chuck Norris?
Yeah, definitely that. Yeah, Chuck Norris movies got me into it.
49's you're in the right age too.
For sure. Yeah, there was that, but there was also the finality of it. And also,
like, finish him?
Yeah, well, it was so real. Like, it didn't matter to me anymore.
Who's the guy that took the hat? I love that.
The hat?
I was thinking Mortal Kombat. The guy who took his hat off.
Raiden.
Yeah.
Raiden.
No, not Raiden. The guy who had like the hat, like sliced you with the hat. Raiden was like
someone sliced you with a hat.
Yeah,
it's like Mortal Kombat 3 or something.
Yeah.
It's just, to me, it was so much more dangerous. It was so much more. There's so much more on the line.
Were you a fight fan, like a boxing fan?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was a big fight fan too.
I've always described martial arts as high-level problem solving with dire physical consequences. That's what I look at it. Yeah, it's also you're problem solving someone who's improvising in the moment with and there's such a psychological factor involved.
It's why you like
in it.
stand-up too, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of great boxers. But Tyson had something going on where
it transcended. It was pop culture.
Yeah,
it's what
he was an executioner. Yeah,
it's pop culture when they transcend into pop culture. The problem with that, a lot of times, is I feel bad for those who Ronda, right? Like the drop off is so extreme when you get to become a cultural icon.
Yeah, but she's a real weird case because she's essentially done. So you got to wonder, like, her mindset when she was winning was this mindset of a destroyer. She would go in there and smash these girls, and she was all in. But then she got wooed by Hollywood and all the distractions and movies and TV shows and all that nonsense. And then bought into a bad strategy against one of the best strikers in the sport and fought the absolute worst way she could have fought against that elite striker and got fucked up. And once she got fucked up, man, the wheels came off. She takes a whole year off and then comes back again and just gets annihilated.
Like,
and
really
now,
annihilated.
And now she's essentially done.
Here's my big
point
point
crazy.
on MMA in the modern world. If you lose the entire fight within the time of an Instagram post, you're in deep shit.
You are, but you're not. See, because she beat Kat Zingano in 14 seconds, and Kat Zingano's still in the mix. And MMA math is all fucked up, but it doesn't really work this way, but this is a fact. Kat Zingano stopped Amanda Nunes. She beat her in the 3rd round. But Ronda Rousey, after that fight, armbarred Kat Zingano in 14 seconds.
Yeah.
So,
no, I get it. And
it's bananas.
You know what's really cool about MMA? I've said this. You might have caught this, James. It's the closest thing to entrepreneurship because everybody loses in entrepreneurship. Boxing's funny. That loss really dangles. It's devastating, that loss. I've been more fascinated from afar, and I'm not as deep into sport, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but there is an absolute different level because the way the sport is structured, there's an acceptance by the fan base of the loss in this sport that I think is very different than boxing. It's like it's a scarlet letter in boxing. When you're coming up, you need to keep it clean.
Right, you want to be undefeated. You want to be an undefeated contender. It is a big factor.
Yeah.
And in MMA, almost no one is undefeated, except Nurmagomedov. He's one of the very few guys that's a top contender right now that's undefeated, and he's just a destroyer. But, you know, he's rare. He's very rare. Most people at the top have lost a couple of times. What Conor showed when he lost, he showed the ability to regroup, take it on the chin like a fucking man, make no excuses whatsoever, and jump right back in and win. And that's super, super rare.
I agree.
He's a phenomenal individual in his ability to visualize things. His belief in himself is just unflappable. and his incredible confidence and ability to operate under pressure. That's the big thing, is being dwarfed by the moment. Being dwarfed by the moment happens so many times.
So much.
People allow those negative thoughts to creep into their mind.
Fuck, man, I'm big on tripling down on people's strengths.
Yeah, it's huge. Well, one of the interesting things about MMA is people that you would call specialists. Like, there's a few people that are really good at one aspect of MMA, and they dominate people because of that. Like Anderson Silva, who's the greatest martial artist of all time, was just a sensational striker.
Yeah.
And when every fight starts off standing, you had to deal with his striking. Before you could get to him, before you could take him down, before you could try to submit him.
Get through that.
You had to get through that.
Yeah.
And that was, he's a specialist. Damian Maia is a specialist in a completely different way. He's one of the top welterweight contenders, probably #1 now, next to Wonderboy, who's going to be fighting for a rematch of the title. But Damian Maia is a pure jiu-jitsu specialist. His striking is only to get close enough to you to grab you, drag you to the ground, strangle you. And in that way, he's a lot of what he is a throwback. But his jiu-jitsu skill is so elite that everyone else who goes to the ground with him, even guys like Carlos Condit, who's a former world champion, a really high-level guy, just gets smushed like a bug and strangled because he's such a specialist.
I get it.
Yeah. Martial arts is very interesting in that way, because that works with some people, but it doesn't work with other people. I mean, other people have beaten Damian Maia because of the fact that he's, in many ways, one-dimensional.
Yeah.
But that one dimension's a motherfucker of a dimension.
I'm a big boxing fan. I grew up a big Aaron Pryor fan.
Me too.
A big Pernell Whitaker fan. Like,
what was in that bottle, man? Panama Lewis. What the fuck did he slip him? What did he slip him?
I'm dying to know.
I would like to know. Panama Lewis is still alive.
I'm able to quantify that because I think about a lot of the boxers who had their one or two things that it was just fascinating.
Sure.
Like, you had to figure it out.
Sure.
Roy Jones. You know, it was funny, you're talking about Conor. I was like, when Roy Jones found his moment to go up to heavyweight, you know, it's interesting.
Okay, well, here's a perfect example. We're talking about steroids.
Yes.
When Roy Jones went up to fight John Ruiz, now I don't know Roy that well. I've met him. He's a great guy. I'm a huge fan. He's probably one of my favorite boxers, if not my favorite of all time.
He was a great fighter.
But I'm pretty sure he did some Mexican supplements to fight John Ruiz.
Just to get up to that weight?
Yeah. He was 200 pounds. He was jacked. He was shredded. It's not necessarily that natural for you to put on that kind of weight.
In that short period of time.
168 to 175 to 200. That's a lot of big jumping. And looked amazing. And, you know, kept his speed. Then, here's the thing. Dropped back down to 175 again to fight Tarver and looked like shit. Had a really hard time making the weight. And I think also you looked at his body, he was smooth. His muscle tone was different. It didn't look the same. And I think a lot of that is his endocrine system potentially suffering from the steroids. Like taking steroids and then the crash. I don't know. This is pure speculation. But all my years of seeing people do the same thing, seeing people take steroids or take anything any anabolic enhancements and then dropping down and getting off of them again, you seem flat.
Pattern recognition.
Well, I know a lot of pattern recognition about fighting. That's one of the things about fighting is pattern chunking. You know, you see things that you've seen before, you know, and you see it coming before maybe even the other guy sees it coming.